Good morning, friends. Welcome to the next edition of Monday Morning Quiz MMQ-18. As mentioned earlier, the topic for today's quiz will be FMEA. And we refer to the latest edition of FMEA as per AIAG. So without waiting, without giving you much excitement, let me get on with the question straight away. So let me share my PPT. So this is Monday Morning Quiz from PQSI, dated the 7th February 2022. And the first question for this quiz today on FMEA. Question number 1, what will be the action priority rating for scenario A and B? So I request you to look at both the scenarios that's mentioned. And we have mentioned two scenarios with the respective severity, occurrence, and detection ratings, and we also mentioned the RPN values. So as per the latest edition of FMEA, so have a look at the latest edition of FMEA, and you need to give us the action priority rating. I mean, for example, if your answer for scenario A, let's say, is H, and scenario B is, let's say, L, then in the Google form, in this YouTube video, in the comment section, you'll have a Google form. So in the Google form, you just have to mention scenario A hyphen the rating, scenario B hyphen the rating. So that's how you need to answer it. So we are expecting you to give us the action priority rating for these two failure modes. So which is question number 1. Question number 2. In a mobile phone assembly line, a batch of 1,000 phones were assembled, and due to a failure mode, 650 phones need to be dismantled and reassembled. What will be the severity rating for this failure mode? Okay, so understand this scenario, look at the severity rating scales that is mentioned, and then choose the one that fits the best. Right. So in your response form, what we need is just the rating number. Okay. So rating numbers of 1 to 10. So choose the one that you feel is the right one for this particular scenario. Right. So that's question number 2. Question number 3. Again, a very similar question, but this time we are talking about detection rating. So in a ceramic floor tiles manufacturing company, the plant quality team deployed a pick and place robo that will pick every tile produced and place it on the inspection stage of a high resolution camera system that will detect cracks and color variation. So these are the two things that it detects. Based on the signal from the camera, the robo will automatically identify the defective tile and segregate it. What will be the detection rating for this scenario is the question. Again, like the previous question, what we are looking for is in the Google form a number, a detective ratings number that you wish to give for this scenario. Pretty straightforward questions, so no calculations. So looking into the FMEA manuals, looking into, I mean, if you're familiar with the AIAG, the latest version of the FMEA, so I'm sure you should be able to look at those scales and see which one will suit this scenario best. So look forward to receiving your responses. I'm sure you will not take much time to respond to these 3 questions. Pretty straightforward. But take a closer look at the questions, take a closer look at all the scenarios, and then give your best answer. Right. So now we'll move on to the next session about explanation of the previous quiz, MMQ-17. This was on critical path method. As expected, we had a significant drop in the number of responses, which was expected. Because I think critical path method as a tool, although it's part of one of the M7 planning tools, but probably not many are familiar, or not many are used to these the tool. Again, a very important tool, but what is heartening to note is a few who responded, even sent a comment saying that it was good that you gave this question, so we had a chance to understand what is CPM and then attempt it. So that's the real purpose of MMQ. The real purpose of MMQ is, some tools you may be using day in and day out, but some tools could help you in your journey towards continual improvement sometime during your career. And that is what is the purpose of MMQ. So the reason why we are adding more and more tools into the MMQ quiz gamut is primarily to ensure that you are well prepared. Right. So this was the question that was asked on the 24th of January, 2022, a question on CPM. So the very straightforward it was to find out what is the critical path, okay, of this particular process. So there are 7 activities, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And then you also have the preceding activities for each this thing. And then the time taken in days. So as always, CPM, the first thing is, there's another name that we give, as part of the M7 tools is the arrow diagram. So what I've done here is I've started to, we give you an arrow diagram. So there's a start and then, first 2 activities does not have any preceding activities, so they can start straight away. And then activity C can only happen when A and B is complete. So that's how it is. Then activity D, the preceding activity is activity A. And then activity E, D has to be completed if you have to do E. Then activity F, the preceding activity is C. And activity G, the preceding activity is B. So obviously, the finish will be that, E, F, G will towards go through the finish line, right? So this is the arrow diagram. Okay, so I'm sure this is very straightforward. So I've just gone through it very fast. The next step is to fill in those small information that is given. One is what is given is for each activity is the time taken to complete that activity. So in this case, A takes 2 days, B takes 3 days, C takes 5 days, D takes 2 days, E 1 day, F takes 2 days. And G takes 5 days. So that's mentioned in the question. The next most important thing is to find out, so we calculate the early start and the early finish time. So we go in one direction in the arrow diagram. So the first thing is, activity A, the earliest that you can start is you can start immediately at 0, and it takes 2 days to complete it. So the earliest start is 0 and the earliest finish is 2. Activity B, the earliest start is again 0 because both these activities can be started simultaneously. There's no dependence between the two. So 0 and 3 is what is for B. Similarly for C, now C, what happens is for C to complete, you need to have both A and B completed. So if you look at A and B, A takes 2 days, B takes 3 days. So the earliest that C could start is 3 days. And it takes 5 days to complete C, so the earliest finish could be 8 days. So that's how 3 and 8. So then similarly for D, you need A to be completed. So A takes 2 days. So the earliest start for activity D will be 2. So 2 plus 2 is the actual time taken to complete D. So the earliest finish will be 4 days. Similarly, E needs activity D needs to be completed for E. So that means the earliest start will be the earliest finish of D. So earliest finish of D is 4. So the earliest start of E will be also 4. It takes 1 day to complete E. So the earliest finish could be 5 days. Now coming to F. So for F, you probably need C to be completed. So C takes about 8 days is the earliest finish for C. So the earliest start for activity F will be 8. 8 plus 2 will be 10 will be the earliest finish for F. And finally, G will be, it needs activity B to be completed. So which means 3 days. 3 days is the earliest start, and it takes 5 days to complete G. So the earliest finish could be 8 days. So that's the one direction of looking at early start and early finish. So the next thing will be to look at from the reverse side. What's the late start and late finish? So if you look at it, so there are 3 routes into it. So the highest that you can get is about 10 days. It takes activity F takes about 10 days. So if you want to look at the work back, if you want to work back on this arrow diagram. So if you look from activity G, the latest finish could be 10 days for G. So if latest finish, all because activity F is taking 10 days, so that is going to be the key here. So anything, if you want to say finish for this project, then it has to be 10 days. So G will, you can finish it in 10th day. So it takes 5 days to finish G. So which means the latest start that it can have is 5 days. So that's how 5, 10. In the same way, when we calculate, when we work back to calculate, when we work back to calculate F takes, F, obviously it has 10 days to complete. That's the latest. And the earliest start so far is 8. So similarly, we keep calculating, working back the latest finish and the latest start days for activity E, which is 10. The latest finish is 10. It takes 1 day. So the latest that you can start is 9 days. Similarly, activity D, the latest is, it can be finishes 9 days because E starts at the 9th day. So the latest finish for D could be 9 days. 9 minus 2 will be 7 days. So that's how we work back the latest start and latest finish for all the activities. So once you have done this, once you have filled this column, the next step is to find out the slack. So what is slack? Slack is nothing but the difference between early start to early finish or late start to late finish. So difference, what is the difference here? For activity A, the difference is 1. So it's either 1 minus 0 or 3 minus 2. So the slack at activity A is 1. Similarly, we can calculate slack for all the other nodes. Okay, so all the other nodes, what's the slack? Now, if you notice here, activity B, activity C, activity F, these three, the slack is 0. So which means, so any delay in this activity will actually delay your final project. So which is 10 days. So this is the actual critical path. So the critical path is the path where all the activities where the slack is 0. So BCF is the critical path in this case. So BCF, where the slack is 0, which means any activity, either B or C or F, if it delays by whatever time, the end project also will get delayed. So that is why BCF is the critical path. So this is how critical path, is identified by a simple arrow diagram. And I'm happy to announce the winners for critical path quiz MMQ-17. Once again, Jagdish is a winner in this, in this quiz as well. Quality Manager of Praxer India Private Limited. Looks like Jagdish is all, determined to be there, and he is not willing to give that seat to anyone else. Looks like that. I mean, almost every quiz he is there. And I also wish to congratulate Mr. A. Karthikeyan, Manager Corporate Quality Assurance of Rani Brake Linings. Okay, for the first time he is winning this quiz. And then Mr. Murali Krishnan, I think he is winning it for the second time. So Manager Corporate TQM, JK Tires and Industries Limited. So congratulations to all the three winners of MMQ-17. And, certainly, as I mentioned, CPM was a tricky topic that I took, knowing fully well that the responses will be less. But nevertheless, we are happy that, there are three winners out of those respondents, which is what is all about. And I think the more and more you try to attempt the quiz, the more and more you learn. I mean, it's just that spending that extra 30, 40 minutes here and there, looking at the question, looking at the tools. There are materials available on the internet to understand what is the question, and then attempt. And then, what happens is that, it becomes, you look forward to using tools like CPM also, when you're into project management and things like that. So with these few words, let me, congratulate all those who responded also. We do have a few respondents who did make a try. There were some minor mistakes, but nevertheless, I think, the whole idea of MMQ is to make sure that you attempt and learn a few things which probably could help you in your journey for continual improvement. Okay, so thank you so much for watching this video, and I look forward to all your responses for this quiz on FMEA MMQ-18. Okay, so please ensure that you send in your responses before before coming Sunday. and so that you are you stand a chance to be joining the winners club. Thank you, and this is Nanda signing off for Monday Morning Quiz from PQSI.